first fittings, of course, we're not printing hard parts. The light lines are literally red tape, you know, but still
Imagine.
that,
Hold on to that imagination, Jared.
We've just blocked that in for you. I cut it out of some tape, but it's going to be great.
Welcome to the Costume House with Spencer Williams, a podcast dedicated to the art and storytelling of costume design in film and television. I am your host, Spencer Williams, and thank you so much for joining me. Let me preface this episode by saying I am a huge Tron nerd. I love science fiction, and these films, just eject them directly into my bloodstream. I could watch them over and over and over. For today's episode, I am thrilled to be joined by a designer whose work has shaped some of the most iconic visuals in modern science fiction, Christine Bieselin Clark. Christine's latest project, Tron Ares, makes a breathtaking return to the grid. We talked about reinventing the light suits for a new era, the practicality and advancement in technology since Christine's work on Tron Legacy, building 3 distinct grids through color and philosophy, design for Jared Leto and Jodie-Turner Smith, an incredible team who brought these illuminated worlds to life. And with that, let's step inside the costume house. I am so happy to welcome to the show someone whom I've been wanting to talk to for a very long time now because I am just such a big sci-fi nerd, and we're talking to a queen of sci-fi costume design. Please welcome to the show costume designer Christine Bieselin Clark. Hey, Christine.
Hi. Well, that was such an intro. I hope I live up to all of these glowing.
Of course. I mean, I've been watching your work, it seems like forever now. I mean, going back to Tron Legacy and of course all of your work in the Star Trek universe as well. So, I mean, I'm a sci-fi nerd, so this has been a long time coming.
This is going to be great then.
Okay, good. Well, I'm so excited to talk to you all about Tron Ares. I really, really, truly love this film. It just felt so good to be back on a grid and just seeing how technology and visuals have evolved over the years and the black and red colors. I mean, I just have so much I want to talk to you about. But first, I mean, Tron Legacy had such a enduring impact on sci-fi costume design, and you of course were a co-costume designer alongside our friend Michael Wilkinson, who we've talked to a lot recently on Andor, and he's had so many glowing things to say about you as well. So what was it like stepping back into the grid 15 years later?
I know, and I'm not old enough to have it been that long, so talk about wild, right? The things that we designed and the technologies that were used on Legacy, you think about technology and how impactful and immediate, and the growth is so huge. To come back into the grid 15 years later, it was like an entirely new set of tools in the toolbox for us, which was such a beautiful thing because when we were on Legacy, I mean, Michael and I, we worked with Quantum Creation Effects and Ironhead Studios and trying to develop integral lighting to that degree in costumes for that time was the behemoth. It was the challenge for all of us. I mean, honestly, it was just to make it practical and functional and stunts and all that. The hardest part was the lighting elements. And there were so many compromises made creatively by us as designers, the production design, everything to be able to get it in camera. And what's wild is going back 15 years later, suddenly those parameters were a little bit different because of the evolution of technology, which what a true blessing that was, to be able to kind of like, I can shake off these demons of the past and we can do so much more. And so that was just such a wonderful gift to come back with the advancements 15 years later.
Yeah, I mean, just so exciting. I can't even imagine that first step, being able to look at your toolbox and see how it's evolved over the years. I mean, just as a whole, how has costume design evolved over these last 15 years?
Well, I mean, listen, when we were back doing these first suits, these were sculpted, molded, foam latex suits. And a lot of the reason behind that was, of course, to get the design elements that we wanted, the sleekness of line and the bumping out of the physique and all of that. Foam latex really was our best friend in lightweightness, durability. And then it played a huge part in the safety element of the suit, because the technologies of legacy um, were a little precarious in terms of, maybe the health and safety factor of things. And we really had to develop systems like barrier suits and all that stuff for the wiring to ensure the safety of the actors. Um, so cut to, I mean, also we were using a flexible urethane light that had never been used like this before. It was literally like something off of a safety vest in Japan
Yeah.
that we were like, oh, let's take that and turn it into these suits. But no one had done it before. So wild.
Hmm.
Um, Coming back to Ares with all the different ways of using lighting technologies, and Cobb LEDs were so, they're incredibly safe. Like there was the amount of safety meetings we had on Legacy was like staggering. And the ones we had on Ares, we were like, oh, good, we're good. It was
These
just a
might blow up, just so
completely
you know.
different thing. And then our powering systems in Legacy, trying to integrate batteries into the suit without completely distorting the lines of the design, and getting some longevity. I mean, some of these suits where you can only light for like 10 or 15 minutes.
Wow.
Whereas you come into Ares and you're like, oh, the battery pack is like this big, and we can light that suit for hours off of that battery. It was just a completely different world, and it opened up so many parameters in design. It was a lovely experience in that regard.
How exciting. So you must have been thrilled to get into Tron Ares, which I'm so excited to talk about. First, let's start with the bigger picture. Tell me about your collaboration with your director, Joachim Rønning, and maybe about setting the picture. What does Tron Ares look like now, all these years later? It has a little bit of a darker, more dystopian feel when you look at compared to Tron Legacy, where it was a little bit more mysterious and blue. Now we're dark and red. It feels a little bit more antagonistic when you look at it at first.
Absolutely. I mean, I think always Joachim's point of view, Sean Bailey, our wonderful producer, the studio at large, our production designer, everybody, I think all of us wanted to give tribute to Legacy in the same ways that when we did Legacy, we gave to 1982 Tron, is you're trying to find that connected tissue of the line language and the applicability of how you use shapes, colors, etc., to carry on the story through the franchise. However, this being a more militarized, this is a weaponized program. So your choices we were so much more angular and intense and armored and all of that stuff, which of course comes across, especially with the color choices, but also just going and looking at the story you're telling, right? So in Legacy, it's ultimately a love story across the board, and the softness and the beauty of all those choices that we made versus Ares, which is, I mean, ultimately a story of human empathy and understanding and growth in that way. But everyone wanted us to take what we knew in the language of the past and make sure it looked classic Tron with the amount of light, the intensity of things, the light cycles. But we really had to, dial it into a different direction than Legacy. So I think Joachim, it was really, really important for him. The light was always our conversations about placement and strength of line and making sure those chest lights had that story that referred back to Legacy, but in its own unique way. So it's reverence for the history and then tonally shifting completely, and then pushing the envelope. 15 years later, the appetite of an audience and the evolution of technology, even our own lives, I think the expectation is much greater. It was a high bar, but I think we did it.
Yeah, you have a lot of boxes we got checked in this one.
It's like a laundry list. Here's a memo.
Yeah. Well, let's get into it. Let's step into the grid finally. First, before we get started, I want to shout out co-costume designer Alex Friedberg, who designed the real
Yes.
world costumes for Tron Ares. Alex couldn't make it today, but of course, Alex, if you're listening, you're always welcome.
We love you.
Yes, we love you. Please come by and chat. But you were tasked with design of costumes we see in the grid, which actually make their way into the real world as well, which we'll talk about that unique challenge. But Tron Ares introduces 3 distinct grids, and you were really responsible for the look of 2 of them, each with its own identity, reflected not only in color. For example, we have a lot of black for Ares and Athena, lots of red for the guards of Dillinger, lots of blues and grays of ENCOM, but in the philosophies behind them. So in particular, can you talk about how you differentiated these 2 worlds through color, texture, and silhouette, and what deeper ideas or philosophies shape the look of each grid?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, you go back to Legacy again. So when we were developing the ENCOM grid, that to us was the most connected to the line language and the colorways of Tron Legacy. So you can clearly see in those ENCOM soldiers how much of the line work is stemming from and connected to our line work of Legacy. So it was really important to us that ENCOM that we see now brought our audiences closer to the world that we left in Legacy. And I think we did that in the cool color palette, those really soft cyan blues that come out of Legacy. Alan Villanueva was our concept artist on this and just really took those directives of bring it forward and push it a little further, but make it like a historical ode to even the helmets, the cutaways and the shape of everything. So it was important to us to make that so distinctly visually different from the Dillinger Grid, and to bring that forward from our past, which I think, again, I think spot on, right? And then the Dillinger Grid, our line language in Legacy was very much based in the hexagonal shape, 6-sided DNA was sort of the root of everything. And when you get into Ares, it's a triangle. So the line language that you'll see in the light form shapes of that grid and the shape of, the disc, of course, Ares has a triangle disc, the shapes and the facets to the lines and the armor and everything, all born from a very geometric point of view. And it's much more aggressive. And it's, it's impactful in its intensity, which I think was a really important jumping off place to see Ares go through his journey of discovering those human empathetic kind of tones to a program that's evolving.
Yeah.
So I feel like that intention was just perfectly executed through the production design, the color value, and we created these 2 extremely different worlds in the grid. And then of course you go back into our retro grid of Kevin Flynn's place of existence, which Ares going into that really told such a distinct story of the history of the franchise moving forward. And of course, that's a completely kind of CG wondrous environment. And then Jeff Bridges' costume in there, I actually collaborated with Alex on that. That was one of our big crossover costumes. So that Kevin Flynn costume has so much reverence for his lines in Legacy, like as far as the robes and the drape and everything really apply to the first time we saw him come back to us. But taking all of like Sid Mead's amazing, super cool light lines from 1982 and bringing those onto the back of the costume. So that grid is kind of like a hybrid of all 3 grids, like meeting together in this one wonderful place. So that's a super cool moment in the movie for all of us.
And it's just such like great sci-fi history too, coming together in that moment too, just looking at how things have evolved since the 80s and looking back at the 80s hockey suits that were kind of cobbled together to this moment where we see Jeff Bridges. It really, I mean, I don't know, I could bring a tear to an eye of a sci-fi nerd
and the
like
only
myself.
actor that's in all 3 films is our our wonderful friend Jeff.
Yeah. And I have to add on to what you said too. There's something so antagonistic about a triangle compared to the very round shapes of like we see in
Isn't
the
it?
Grid.
And I think
It's
that
a little
line language
spooky.
is carried throughout, and it really does give this super intense place of origin that takes us on the journey of coming back into the real world.
Well, one thing that I don't think a lot of people are really grasping onto just that they need to understand the practicality of Tron Ares because it's just like some other films out there. People tend to think, oh, it's all computer generated, but I mean, this is very,
Hell no.
very real. So I applaud you and your
Yes.
team. So let's talk about the practicality of it. Executive producer Russell Allen said in some production notes, saying that your team was faced with the challenge of creating suits that appeared as though they were computer generated, but which also made sense and looked right in the real world at the same time. And it also had to be something that kept the actors and stunt actors comfortable enough for a 10-hour shooting days and safe in rain and moisture. A lot for you all to think about. So
It's
kind
so
of just
easy.
yeah,
Stop.
this must have took a couple weeks, right? So
Just a minute.
how did you and your team tackle the intersection of practicality, safety, and this hyper digital Tron aesthetic? Like you mentioned, I mean, there's battery packs and lightings, and like you said, don't want the actors to get electrocuted and has to look right in the real world, but also blend in with the grid at the same time. And I know you also worked with Weta Workshop and Ironhead Studios as well too. So tell me a little bit about that collaboration and bringing these suits to life.
Yes. Okay. Well, let's start at the beginning, which is, of course, concept art. I had just a stellar team, Mario Cecilio, Alan Villanueva, Luca Namolata. They have worked with me on many projects over the years. And in that conceptual phase, we started from points of practicality, even in the illustrations. So they were so astute and informed of the methods of building these things. We all worked together in a room and, constantly talking about how an arm moves. How do you armadillo the plates so that everything works? Making sure we had places to put the battery pack. So even in our design process, we were so cognizant of the functionality of the suits as we were building them. So they just did a stellar job of always incorporating stunts, movement, flexibility. We say comfort, but ha ha ha, no. Um, comfortable in the sense that it's achievable and wearable, but these suits are hard. This is tough stuff. You'll hear Jodie talking in her interviews of how she thought she was training for stunts, but she was training to wear the suit. She is not wrong. So, it really started from that point of view of, again, yes, taking these shapes, taking that graphic line language, knowing we're going to be bringing these things into the real world. So a lot of our research was like armor based and, functional samurais and all, how did these pieces all move together? And Weta Workshop, and as well as my friends at Ironhead, Jose Fernandez, Weta really worked very integrally from the beginning with us on what kind of technology we were going to be using for the lighting and how we would navigate those wiring harnesses and create the safety in the suits. And so our designs were built, in tandem with function the whole time. So, Weta, Lance Hansen at Weta was like our right-hand guy of just making sure that any rules we had to follow for the technical, we really walked hand in hand with that through the design process. So, for instance, trying to send a light line through a rotator joint, like an arm or a hip, is really not a practical situation
Sure.
for any suit. So we had all those conversations. I mean, all day, every day, just
Mhm.
talking through everything. And then we just did a lot of stunt-worthy testing of stuff, really trying out the helmets, trying out the compression, everything, and getting all those feedbacks to make it achievable in camera. The great thing is, I have to say again and again, just the evolution of the technologies we used that just gave us so much more of a range of motion, flexibility, the helmets, the Ironhead, hands down, the fans that are in there, the way the actors can move and breathe in them, their visibility. So much was considered about function and practicality in the design. And I think it really showed in the production value. And I will tell you assuredly that it showed in the VFX budget because we had to clean up a lot of things in Legacy, and it's the same producers, the same friends who were there, knowing that we had to put a little budget line in there just in case stuff needed to be done. And so much is in camera that millions of dollars were able to be recovered from that line
Wow.
and brought to other sources of production. So I'm happy to say mission accomplished.
Yes. And that's why you're one of the right people for the job too, because you have that
I think so,
experience.
but
Yeah.
thank
Yeah. Well, that also brings up an interesting point talking about, your collaboration with Weta and Ironhead. But also, I have to imagine that your collaboration with other departments on Tron Ares
Oh
was
yeah.
so integral. I mean, especially production design, cinematography. Could you speak to that as well?
Yes. I mean, Darren Guilford is just my guardian angel. Our production designer, Darren, who also was our production designer on Tron Legacy. So we have a working relationship of many years. And what an amazing spirit guide. The production design team starts significantly before costumes because of the magnitude of what's needed there.
Yeah.
And so to come in and really lean on Darren for the line language and the frame and the tonality of colors and textures that we're using, and such a wonderful collaboration and huge support to make that marriage symbiotic. And I don't know if anyone else could have created the magic that Darren has in this film. And then, of course, our prop master, Dean Eilerston and I, there's so much crossover of, the disc has to be on the costume, but then it's a prop, and the batons that turn into this, and how do you mount things and all that stuff, and having to get all the colors and the textures and everything to match perfectly, and the paint finishes, and, Weta's in New Zealand, but we're building some things in Vancouver. And those friends are just you can't put a price tag on how invaluable those collaborations were, and those gentlemen were just the best.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm sure this is one of those projects that probably made your brain throb at night, but it looks
It
incredibly
still does. I haven't recovered.
Well, it works so harmoniously when you see it on screen, though, which I think really shows how successful these collaborations were as well, Christine. So much
I
applause to
appreciate
you
that
and your
so
team.
much. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about.
I just love all these visuals that are coming up. It's such
It's
a happy
fun.
making thing. So if anyone is looking at my eye line is off, it's just because I'm looking down at some imagery.
Oh, same. And you're like way over here on my screen. So
our eye lines are forcocked, everybody, but it's okay.
The pictures will be there for everyone too, so they'll be happy.
Great, they'll know what I'm looking at.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Ares himself, played by Jared Leto, of course. He said in the production notes that he loved the suit, and wearing it actually transported him into the grid. And the moment he looked down and saw it illuminated, it really just brought him into character. He felt like Ares, and that is so integral to any actor, actress on a project like this, as you know, through your time on Star Trek and going, and all these incredible projects you've done over the years. So tell me a little bit about the journey behind creating this look for Ares, and of course, working with Jared Leto, who I know was very involved in this project as well.
It's a funny thing. We talk a lot about visuals a lot in costume design. And of course, it's imperative. And the process of creating something from the ground up on paper to a living thing is a long journey. There's a lot of road in there. But the one thing that I think sometimes people forget, and this is probably something that's important for students of design and people who are coming up, is the feeling. We can't forget that an actor is delivering a performance. And there's a feeling that comes from wearing a costume, from the boot choice you make to the way that the weight of something, how a helmet feels, and how it makes you feel as an actor when you're wearing it is such an important part of the collaboration between the costume designer and the actor. And Jared, of course, has been part of this forever. I mean, he's, one of the integral reasons why we made the film or got to make the film. And, we're the same age. And so we both had a lovely chat about, our child versions of ourselves going to the arcade and playing the game. For me, it was a bowling alley. I think he was in a laundromat. I don't know. But that, that childlike awe and wonder of our first glimpses at Tron and seeing the film, and trying to make sure as we were going down the road, of course, it has to look unique and tremendous and impactful and all that stuff. But the wonder and the joy of the child in us of discovering this suit through the process was something we tried to hang on to. And I remember we had a really preliminary fitting at Jared's home. And so, like, when you do your first fittings, of course, we're not printing hard parts, like everything's not in
Sure.
urethanes. It's all, you're looking at shapes and placement, and, the light lines are literally red tape, you know, but still,
Imagine. You can't
that,
hold on to that imagination, Jared.
we've just blocked that in for you. I cut it out of some tape, and it's going to be great.
Yeah.
But even that very first time, putting on the shapes in like a black leotard and with all this artwork up on the wall. And I looked at him and he just looked like that kid who had found that spark of joy. And I was like, Jared, you're wearing a Tron suit. And he was verklempt and I got verklempt. And then we ate cookies together. But no, it was, the process of the feeling and finding the feeling of it, and the weight and the heft and the intention and the impact and all of that with him. I think it was, for me, just seeing that happen and come to life and have him feel like this is it. It's working. We did it is, definitely the huge success of this journey.
I mean, it is such a cool suit. The moment you saw it on screen for the first time, it just, it puts you like a childlike state. You're like, this is so cool. And with the Nine Inch Nails soundtrack in the background too, it's a feeling. This movie should be in IMAX permanently. There should be a place where you could just go see it whenever you want to.
I actually just went to a screening last night because there was like a DVD, like streaming platform release screening. And that, I want to make an admission. It was my first time seeing it in IMAX.
Oh,
I've seen it on regular screens, but
an experience, right?
I was like feeling the music in my body and like watching these suits, and it was insane.
Yeah.
So anyone, if you have not seen the film and you intend to,
that's
IMAX.
the way to do it.
It's the way to go.
For sure. Another character I'd love to talk about is, of course, Athena, played by Jodie-Turner Smith. This is a character who is following orders down to a T and ends up having a character arc that might be surprising if you weren't paying attention at first. As you mentioned earlier, Jodie talked about wearing the suit, and it sounds very much like it helped her find a character, one could say. I also love seeing some of this concept art of the helmet on Athena's character as well. So I was wondering if you could speak to Athena's character as well.
Yeah, listen, we're building warriors, and there's still the feminine and masculine version of that in the world that we're approaching, as it has to have context with the world that we live in. So, it wasn't a singular androgynous suit for these militarized programs. So we did get to explore how these lines and the graphic nature of them and the intensity and the aggression of the shapes would parlay into the female form. And our concept artist, Mario, worked with me on this. And the whole time you want to make it feminine, but we have to believe that she is, the Amazon woman that she is. And of course, Grace Jones comes into play, and you're looking at all these kind of shapes and women. And it was just really important to us to, of course, make her look beautiful. And I think the shapes are all there and the light lines are gorgeous and she looks stunning. But she also looks like someone who you would not want to have mad at you in an alley. She
fair.
Looks like she can take you on, anybody. So I think it's just it's a beautiful balance of masculine and feminine. And I think Jodie just looks absolutely killer in the suit. It's a magical thing to me. And I know I tortured her, and I hope she forgives me someday. But I think what's hard for people to understand is to get all of this to sit on the body the way that it does and keep it locked in. There's a base layer to all of this to create tension, and your body has to constantly push itself up against that tension. So you're engaging your core strength, you're pushing your lower back to fight against that tension all the time. It's exhausting. And I mean, she did it with grace.
And she looked like a badass the
Oh,
entire
so
time,
good.
as you said. And she's not a character that will give up either. So you're right. You don't want her mad at you.
Mm-mm.
So, as we kind of wrap up here, I would love to take a moment to just have you talk about your team. There was it sounds like an incredible large team of concept artists, technicians, makers, fabricators that brought all these suits to life. So, just Christine, tell me about your team and all the people that helped make this happen.
I mean, talk about our own behind the scenes army of
Yeah.
people. It's it's funny. I always call myself like I'm the lead singer of the band, but it's a 8,000 piece band.
Hmm.
We as costume designers are talking about our work, and we talk about this design process, and we're usually the face of things. But I'm just one person. And though I have a lot of skills, I don't have them all. And the concept artists are my right hand peoples from the beginning of taking what's in my mind and making it a reality on paper to convey the thought and intention. And then as you continue to move through the process, our assistant designer, your assistant costume designer, Allison Agler, I mean, bleeding through the eyes to get this stuff done. Coordinating research, references, imagery, fittings, all the information disseminating. Our amazing costume supervisors, Michelle Margolis, and our Vancouver costume designer, Jennifer Grossman. You cannot have a plan to succeed without a logistics team that knows how to move all the pieces around. And those women are just absolutely brilliant at maximizing resources and finding you the most incredible artists to bring your visions to life. We had a workroom in Vancouver with some extremely talented cutters and fitters and specialty costumers, our agers and dyers and, screen printers, fabric makers, IRL who does FX there, Ironhead Studios here in Los Angeles. Weta Workshop is a planet. There are
Yeah.
hundreds of people that work there. So to get the opportunity to have that many incredibly talented people working side by side with you on one common goal to create this level of excellence, it's never lost on me how incredible they all are. And I love working in science fiction simply for the fact that I get to have that kind of a department. When you're world building and you're creating actual costumes, to basically set up your own village of talent to address all of the needs from concept to execution to on-set. I mean, Federico Cervantes, Sofia Coronado are FX costumers who worked on Tron Legacy and came back to this
Wow.
crazy town to revisit it again. I can't sing their praises enough. I wish we had another hour for me to talk to you about each one of them and the grit and intensity and commitment that they all brought.
And I would like to also point out too, I mean, obviously these are, in terms of story, these are computer generated characters, but these
Yes.
costumes are not computer generated. These are people that had to work with their hands. And I just think that is so integral to the process. So I think a lot of applause needs to be sent toward you and your team too, for just the practicality of it all. I don't think people understand that no part of this is really computer generated.
It's all real.
Not AI.
All of it.
So
we didn't use a lick of AI on these costumes, friends. I know it would have made sense for us to do so, but we didn't. No, it is.
I love that.
Me too. I mean, it's the most thrilling part of what we do is to get to actually craft and create and innovate. And I'm really lucky to get to do it in the genre that seems to call me.
Yeah. Well, and with that, as we wrap up here, I just want to ask, looking back at your journey of designing Tron Ares, what are you most proud of in terms of what you and your team achieved on this film?
There are so many things that I'm proud of. I mean, I'm so proud of the tenacity and the innovation. I think I'm the most proud of our allegiance and reverence to the brainchild of what this all is. Steven Lisberger, I love that and adore that man, has been creating and innovating it's such a wonderful and strange world inside the grid. What is
Yeah.
inside the grid? What's inside the computer? And to take binary code and data and create a storyline of human exploration through the decades and decades that we've gone through. I feel um I feel really proud of putting some bookends into that and the reverence that it deserves.
Costume designer Christine Bieselin Clark, this has been such a joy. I'm such a big fan of your work, and this was amazing. I could feel like I could talk to you for a couple more hours. So
We could.
if you could just whip up a couple more of these Tron movies, I would very much be indebted to you.
We'll be back. I thank you so much for the opportunity, Spencer. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. The Costume House with Spencer Williams is a production of The Art of Costume. This episode was hosted, produced, and edited by Spencer Williams. To discover more conversations with the designers shaping film, television, and theater, visit theartofcostume.com or follow us on social media at The Art of Costume. And don't forget to connect with me on Instagram at HostSpencer. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts or watch on YouTube. And stay tuned for more episodes celebrating the designers shaping today's most captivating films, television series, and stage plays.